Hey everybody, it's a Writing Wednesday today, so we're going to look at summary, paragraph, and quotations, and the best way to do them, when to do them, and all that kind of stuff today. Okay, so summary, quotation, and paraphrasing. So this is adapted from a really great website. It's the OWL Online Writing Lab, OWL at Purdue Writing Lab. You can look, if you just write OWL Purdue in Google, it will come up, and it's a very good and thorough spot to look at writing and how to write well for university or college. So summary, quotation, and paraphrasing. These three ways of incorporating other writers' work into your own writing differ according to the closeness of your writing to the source writing. So you can choose any of these three things. Now, if your writing is basically taking the original source and putting it in your own words, that's typically paraphrasing. If you're using directly the same phrases, then you're word for word, it's a quotation. And if you're kind of paraphrasing but kind of saying what the main ideas are, that is summary. So we're going to get to that. So quotations must be identical to the original using a narrow segment of the source. They must match the source document word for word and must be attributed to the original author. Excuse me. Paraphrasing involves putting a passage of the material in your own words. A paraphrase must be attributed to the original source. Paraphrase material is usually shorter than the original passage, taking the somewhat broader segment of the source and condensing it slightly. And then summary involves putting the main ideas in your own words using only the main points. Once again, it is necessary to attribute summarized ideas to the original source. Summaries are significantly shorter than the original and take a broad overview of the source material. So any way you slice it, if it's somebody else's, you gotta say that it's somebody else's. You have to cite it. So anything that's not common knowledge really should be cited in your work. The reason being is that you do not want to be plagiarizing, right? So you don't want to be taking anyone else's ideas and passing them off as your own. That's a big no-no in the academic community, and can end up getting you get a 0, or in some cases for egregious, you could be debarred or asked to leave the university or college or whatever. So it's really important that you follow those rules. And yeah, so if it's somebody else's ideas, cite it. So why use them? Why use those things? To provide support for your claims and credibility to your writing. So you're an undergrad, or you're a first-year college student. You don't really have authority to be able to sort of say things in that field. So if you are borrowing, if you're using ideas to sort of support as evidence to support your thoughts, that adds credibility. So refers to work that leads up to the work that you're now doing. So sort of a history of what the thoughts in that field. Giving examples of several viewpoints on the subject. Call attention to a position that you wish to agree or disagree with. Highlight a particularly striking phrase, sentence, or passage by quoting the original. Sometimes a professional writer just says it in a way that is better than what you can. So you want to use those words. To distance yourself from the original by quoting it in order to cue readers that the words are not your own, and to expand the breadth or depth of your writing. All right, so there we go. So doing a quotation at the start of a sentence. So a simple quote, you can do it 4 ways at the start of the sentence. So author's last name and then the quote. Author's last name, his or her profession, then the quote. Author, the title of the book, and the quote. Then the title of the book and the author's last name after. So it's important when we're talking about when we're writing about kind of anything academically. Like I saw this in some of our John Oliver last week tonight papers. People refer to him as John. So that's just too familiar. So you can use John Oliver in the initial, especially the first time, you can say John Oliver's show last week tonight, da 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 da. After that, you really want to refer to him as Oliver using the last name. It's sort of a measure of respect, I guess. It just is more professional sounding. I'm not sure where that came from, but you're not going to be like John in your paper because it's too familiar and it just comes across as just not really professional. So you want to refer to the person as by their last name. Especially in academic writing. Okay, so that's just something I noticed when I was reading your papers last month, and so just to keep that in mind. All right. So I'll give you some examples here. So all the examples are from a great book by Timothy Snyder, who's a Yale history professor. He wrote this book on tyranny as sort of a warning about the world of sort of living in the world of Trump. And he wrote about how we can, as citizens, be more on guard for of tyrannical governments. All right, so quotation, Timothy Snyder on tyranny. So here's the 4 different ways. So, and I put them in bold. You don't put them in bold, but these are just sort of like the cueing phrases that you'd use. So you'd say Timothy Snyder states, or just Snyder states, but never Timothy states. Timothy Snyder states, a patriot, by contrast, wants the nation to live up to its ideals, which means asking us to be our best selves. 114. All right, so the next one with the profession. Timothy Snyder, history and Yale professor, states, a patriot, by contrast, wants the nation to live up to its ideals, which means asking us to be our best selves. 114. Timothy Snyder in On Terror, and notice that longer work is italicized there. So On Terror is the name of the book. Timothy Snyder in On Terror states, a patriot, by contrast, wants the nation to live up to its ideals, which means asking us to be our best selves. 114. And then in On Terror, author Timothy Snyder states, a patriot, by contrast, wants the nation to live up to its ideals, which means asking us to be our best selves. So there's 3 different ways you can cue the reader as to the quote coming up. If you want to sort of do it at the start, if the quote's kind of at the start of the sentence. All right, here's one mid-sentence. So if you want to embed the quote in the middle of your sentence, it has to kind of flow. Therefore, you have to add a little bit of context before introducing the quote. So here's a mid-sentence. A nationalist is often focused on resentment and threat by invading alien others. A patriot, by contrast, wants the nation to live up to its ideals, which means asking us to be our best selves. Snyder 114. So, end of sentence. So the same thing, you need to make sure it flows and add your own writing at the beginning of the sentence. Most often this is going to be in more complex, like a complex sentence, certainly a more complex, but a complex sentence. So this is kind of more than one sentence here. Nationalists and patriots are different. While a nationalist will brood on abstract concepts like power, victory, defeat, and revenge, a patriot, by contrast, wants the nation to live up to its ideals, which means asking us to be our best selves. Snyder 114. I misspelled Snyder there. Snyder 114. And then paraphrasing. So we're on to the next thing. So there's quotations. End of sentence, middle of sentence, and early sentence. You just have to either make it flow or cue the person to what's coming up. You don't just want to, you want to set the quote up, and you also want to analyze it afterwards, okay? So that's important. So often I'll read a paper and it'll be a quote, but it won't really either set it up properly or give enough analysis of why. Sometimes, and I make this mistake myself, sometimes we assume the reader is going to understand what we want them to without telling them. But you kind of have to tell them by setting it up. Okay, so we'll move on here to paraphrasing. So paraphrasing is putting something in your own words to shorten it or to make it fit into your writing. But it's not as broad as a summary. So we're not really looking for the great big thematic sweeps. We're not looking for like what the main ideas are in this kind of writing. So here we have, Snyder asserts that patriotism and nationalism are different. While nationalists focus on resentment of others, patriots serve their nation and hold it to higher ideals. 114. So I've taken kind of the quote and I've put it in my own words in a sense, and I've given it some context as well. All right, so that's paraphrasing. Now let's try summary here. So summary is paraphrasing, but getting at the main idea. So in fiction, you might remember this from elementary school. Somebody wanted but so. So if you want to summarize a fictional story, you'd say somebody wanted but so. So somebody is Pai Patel wanted to survive being on a life raft, but there was a tiger on the raft with him. So he went to whatever. You fill in this somebody wanted but so, and it's a good kind of, even though it's an elementary school thing, it's still a good way of thinking about how you would summarize this fictional plot. But anyways, so here we go. Here's me summarizing chapter 19 of Snyder's On Tyranny. So I have a few sentences here, but it is taking a three-page chapter and putting it into 3 sentences, okay? So here's what I wrote. The 19th rule of Snyder's On Tyranny is be a patriot. Snyder employs readers to be patriotic, but not nationalist. He sees these concepts as very different. While nationalism is fueled by resentment of perceived others, patriots hold their nation to universal values and are desirous of a better country. 112 to 114. So notice how I put all 3 pages, because that basically is the gist of those 3 pages as far as I'm concerned. So that's the difference between those 3 things: quotations, paraphrasing, and summary. Each used for different reasons. So summarizing is probably like you're going to use that the least in this course, because often it leads to being pretty long, and you don't necessarily have to do that kind of taking a whole book and smushing it down into a tweet or whatever. Instead, paraphrasing and quotations are probably more important for this course that when we're looking at fiction. Okay, so there's an assignment for you on the website that has a short article, and you're going to practice summary, quotations, and paraphrasing with that short article. And one more quick thing I want to show you. For all this writing stuff, for Writing Wednesdays, I really want you to be aware that when you are off to college, university next year or in the future, all of our universities have they have places that you can go for writing help. And it's really great. So I used these when I was doing my master's. I had a grad student come and help me read. I wrote a 30 page synthesis paper, and at that time that was a big deal for me. And I wasn't really sure about my APA formatting or my paper on the whole. So what I did was I set an appointment with the writing tutorial. So I met with a grad student, and we went through my paper. It took about an hour and a half, and we went through every sentence by sentence, making sure that it all made sense, and it was written in the proper way, and it was everything was properly cited, and all those kinds of things. So here I am on Queen's website, and they have appointments now. You can make an appointment, and they will help you with the grammar and drafting and organizing your main points and developing like all these kinds of things. So you can book an appointment and meet with a grad student and work through your paper. And that's a really good service that is offered at places like Queen's and Ottawa U. I know it's offered at Carleton. I'm pretty sure they offer these at almost every single university, where they have a writing tutorial, a writing staff that would help you with your writing. So that's something to think about for when you're working at Postsecondary, that you can access a proofreader who knows what they're doing and can go through and help you hone that writing and just improve what you're going to produce. So that's just a tip for you guys to think about for when you're off to post-secondary in the future. All right, so go work on your paraphrasing and your summary and quotations. When you finish it, send it to me in email, and I should have some of the Achabi and other things with some feedback for you headed back, and then also working a little bit on our Life of Pi chapter analysis. All right, take care. Have a great day. Enjoy Wednesday. Hopefully it doesn't rain. Hopefully it's a nice day and you can get outside and get some sun. All right, take care.